Chosen one, let's begin with something nobody has likely told you in a way your soul can finally receive. The pain you carry, yes, that pain was never your fault. But it was your doorway. You've walked through this world with a weight on your shoulders so heavy, so invisible to others. It nearly crushed you from within. And the hardest part, most people around you never even noticed. They saw your smile, they saw your strength, but they didn't see the nights you cried into the pillow. They didn't feel the ache behind your silence. They didn't know what it cost you just to keep breathing some days, and maybe you started to believe the lie. The one that whispered, "Something must be wrong with me." But let me break that lie right now. There's nothing wrong with you. Chosen one, what's wrong is the world's inability to understand you. What's broken is the lens through which others view your spirit. What's heavy is the calling you carry, not the character you possess. You weren't born broken, you were born marked with a frequency the world wasn't ready to hear. And because they couldn't decode it, they labeled it strange, dangerous, intense, too much, too sensitive, too quiet, too mysterious. But let's talk about that pain. The specific ache that followed you from room to room, from one season to the next. That loneliness that showed up even in crowded spaces. That sense that no matter how hard you tried to just be normal, something in your spirit refused to be tamed. You felt things too deeply. You noticed things others overlooked. You carried compassion like armor and discernment like a sword. And for that, you were often punished. So many of your earliest wounds came not because you did something wrong, but because you carried a light too bright for dim places. People couldn't handle your energy, so they projected their discomfort onto you. Family members, teachers, friends, lovers. They turned your sacred sensitivity into a problem. They treated your empathy like weakness. They took advantage of your goodness, mistook your grace for naivety, and deep down, a voice started to form quiet at first, then louder with every betrayal. It said, maybe if I was different, they'd love me better. Maybe if I didn't care so much, they'd stay. But here's the truth they never told you. Your pain wasn't proof of your brokenness. It was evidence of your birthright, because chosen ones rarely come through life unscathed. In fact, it's through the wound that the anointing pours in. Pain isn't the problem. It's the portal. Imagine a seed buried beneath layers of dirt, in the dark, under pressure, surrounded by silence. That seed doesn't die. It activates. The darkness doesn't destroy it. It calls it forth. What looks like isolation is actually preparation. What feels like punishment is often positioning, and you, chosen one, were buried. Not to be forgotten, but to germinate. That moment they left you, that betrayal that shattered your heart, that season where everything fell apart and nothing made sense. Those were sacred triggers, divine alarms. They weren't chaos, they were coded messages, signals to awaken the power within you that had been lying dormant, waiting for pain to ring the bell of remembrance. Because pain, as brutal as it is, has a way of making you look inward. It strips away the noise, it silences the distractions. It forces you to confront what's eternal within you. And in that space, the real you begins to emerge. You begin to notice your own resilience. You realize that even when no one else validated your tears, your soul kept moving. that even when your heart broke into 1,000 pieces, something in you refused to quit. That is sacred. That is divine. And that is you. So I want you to look back, not with shame, not with regret, but with holy reverence. Because every moment you thought was trying to destroy you was secretly chiseling away the false, sculpting you into who you were always meant to be. Yes, your pain was real. Yes, it was unfair. But no, it was not meaningless. You were never weak for feeling it. You were powerful for surviving it. You see, the world is full of people who walk around numb, disconnected, shielded from their own souls. But you feel. You bleed. You remember, and that is not a curse. That is a calling. Because only those who have suffered deeply can love deeply. Only those who've been crushed can carry compassion like medicine. Only those who've tasted sorrow can birth healing. So no, your pain wasn't the enemy. It was the entrance. It was the unlocking of your deeper frequency, the one that vibrates at the same rhythm as truth, as heaven, as light. You didn't ask for it, but you're the only one strong enough to carry it. You are not your pain, chosen one, but your pain opened the path to your power. And it's that path we're walking now together. Let's keep going. Chosen one. Do you remember how early it all began? Long before you knew what chosen even meant. You were already walking through storms other children never had to face. You were different, not because you tried to be, but because you were born that way. There was an energy around you, a stillness in your gaze, a weight in your presence. And even as a child, that frequency sent ripples through the people around you. You didn't know it then, but you were being targeted. Not because of something you did, but because of what you carried, because of what you would become, because of what you would awaken in others just by existing. That pain you felt in childhood, the rejection, the isolation, the misunderstanding, it didn't come from coincidence. It came from spiritual recognition. People may not have been able to explain it with words, but on a soul level, they felt something in you that threatened the systems they were bound to. And so, the attacks began early. You were labeled too quiet, too strange, too emotional. Maybe you were the scapegoat in your family. Maybe the teachers picked you apart. Maybe other kids sensed something off about you, not realizing that what they were picking up on wasn't a flaw, but divine favor. And here's what most never understand. Darkness always moves first when light enters the room. Before you even had language for spiritual warfare, you were in the middle of it. Before you even knew how to defend yourself energetically, your frequency was sending out signals that alerted both heaven and hell. You were on the radar from the moment you arrived. But why? Why would God allow the chosen ones, the very souls He anointed, to face such early trauma? Because the deeper the calling, the earlier the fire. Think of Moses. Pharaoh didn't wait until Moses became a man to try and eliminate him. The plan to destroy him began when he was a baby. The order went out to kill every male Hebrew child, because hell could sense that deliverance was coming through someone hidden in plain sight. And yet, Moses was spared not by accident, but by divine orchestration. Hidden in a basket, floating down the Nile, raised in the enemy's palace. He was protected not in the absence of danger, but right in the middle of it. Sound familiar? You were raised in environments that were spiritually hostile to you. Families where your light was mocked. Schools where your gifts were misunderstood. Relationships that tried to crush your spirit before it had a chance to fully bloom. But through it all, there was a hand on you. You didn't die in what should have killed you. You didn't lose your mind when the pressure came. You didn't forget who you were, even when everyone else tried to convince you you were less than. And now you're beginning to understand why the enemy came for you so early, because he was terrified of what you'd become. You see? Chosen one. Darkness doesn't waste its energy on people who aren't a threat. The enemy doesn't try to steal empty vaults. He only breaks into the lives that carry treasure. And you were a walking vault of divine potential. A vessel pre-packed with gifts, insight, compassion, and truth. Your voice alone, once activated, was a threat to generational lies. Your energy. It could destabilize entire rooms. Your presence a mirror to every inauthentic thing trying to masquerade as real. So of course they came for you. Of course the pressure came early, because your light didn't need time to mature before it disturbed the darkness. It did that simply by being present. But here's the sacred truth you've got to hold on to. No matter how early the pain came, it never had the final say. Because pain was not your destination. It was your catalyst. Even when it tried to define you, confine you, or derail you, your spirit kept rising, kept seeking, kept loving, even when love wasn't returned. And that kind of resilience can't be taught. That's not learned behavior, that's encoded destiny. The earlier the resistance, the deeper the roots. And your roots, chosen one, go deep. They stretch back through generations, carrying wisdom from ancestors who dreamed of a soul like yours rising in this time. You are the fulfillment of promises made in silence, the answer to prayers spoken through tears, the manifestation of healing they never got to see. So when you look back on your childhood, don't just see the pain. See the preparation. See the signs, the divine fingerprints, the moments when, even in your lowest state, something pulled you back from the edge. A whisper, a dream, a knowing. That wasn't random. That was divine protection doing its quiet work. And when they tried to shut you down, when people couldn't stand your presence, when they mocked your intuition, when they tried to erase your voice, what they didn't realize is that every rejection was a redirection, a sacred rerouting to preserve the purity of your purpose. Because if they had embraced you too soon, you might have conformed. You might have diluted yourself just to stay accepted. You might have traded your authenticity for approval. But the pain taught you to be true to you. That's the gift hidden inside every early scar. They taught you to listen to your own frequency, to trust what your soul already knew, to honor what God whispered in the silence, even when the world tried to drown it out. You were targeted, yes, but you were never abandoned. You were misunderstood, but never unseen. And as we move deeper into this journey, I want you to start looking at your past with new eyes. Not eyes of bitterness, but eyes of revelation. The pain was real. The trauma was unjust, but the survival that was supernatural. And now the veil is lifting. You're starting to see. And once a chosen one sees, they can never be silenced again. So let's keep going, because what's ahead is going to make everything behind finally make sense. Let's go deeper now. Chosen one, because now that you understand the pain came early and that it wasn't your fault, it's time to confront a deeper truth, one that most people never realize in their lifetime. Your pain wasn't a punishment. It was a spiritual initiation. You weren't being attacked because you were weak. You were being refined because you were rare. And that's the thing about rare souls. Heaven doesn't handle them casually. It doesn't rush their unfolding. It doesn't shield them from pressure. It prepares them through it. Because real power, real spiritual authority, it doesn't come from talent or titles. It comes from survival, from walking through the wilderness and still keeping your heart open, from being broken and still choosing to bless, from losing everything and still deciding to rise. And that chosen one is exactly what you've done. You've been initiated by life, not just once, but again and again. Every loss, every betrayal, every night where you asked God why those weren't detours. They were rituals, sacred rites of passage that only those marked for something higher must endure. See, when people talk about being chosen, they often forget to mention what comes with it. They think it's about favor, miracles, manifestations. And yes, those things are part of it, but only after the fire. Because favor that hasn't been refined will destroy a person, and power that hasn't been purified will always turn poisonous. That's why the anointing requires initiation, not in a church, not with applause, but in the trenches of your own soul. And chosen one, you were initiated through pain. Pain introduced you to your higher self. Pain stripped away the masks you were forced to wear just to survive. Pain opened up spiritual senses you didn't know you had. Pain taught you to listen not just to words, but to energy. To feel the undercurrents in a room. To discern what wasn't being said. To detect lies masked as kindness, and truth wrapped in silence. Pain became your teacher, your guide, your sacred portal. It showed you who you were and who you were not. It pruned you, sharpened you, cleansed you of attachments that would have kept you small. Because the truth is, if everything had gone smoothly, you might have settled. You might have stayed in places too shallow for your spirit. You might have surrounded yourself with people who loved the idea of you, but not the truth of you. You might have stayed asleep, but the pain shook you awake. It burned away illusions. It exposed lies. It forced you to ask the deeper questions, to seek, to cry out, to surrender. And in that surrender, you were reborn, not instantly, not all at once, but piece by piece, layer by layer. The old you began to fall away, the people pleaser, the peacemaker at your own expense, the mask wearer, the approval seeker, gone, burned in the fire of your becoming. What rose from the ashes was someone clearer, stronger, someone who doesn't beg to be understood anymore because your truth no longer needs permission to exist. Now, you walk differently. There's a stillness in your spirit that wasn't there before. There's a power in your eyes that didn't come from ego. It came from survival. There's a knowing in your bones, a discernment that's been forged in the flame. You don't just think differently. You see differently. You feel deeper. You move with a level of awareness that confuses people who've never had to dig past the surface. And that is the mark of initiation. You've been to hell and back and came back with keys. Keys of insight, keys of compassion, keys of empathy for others who are still bleeding silently, just like you once did. That's why your voice matters. That's why your presence disrupts. That's why you can walk into a room and feel everything and everyone without anyone saying a word. You're not just intuitive, you're initiated. There's a frequency in you that can't be taught, it can only be remembered. And the remembering came through fire, through loss, through 1,000 deaths and 1 resurrection. And it's not just you. Throughout history, every true light-bringer went through the same fire. Joan of Arc didn't rise without being rejected, ridiculed, and burned. King David wasn't crowned until he was chased, exiled, and hunted. Even Christ himself had to walk through betrayal, mockery, and death before resurrection. Or why? Because the path of the chosen is never paved with ease. It's paved with pain that purifies, with silence that sanctifies, with trials that train. You were never being punished. You were being prepared to speak with authority, not just theory. Prepared to carry power, not just potential. Prepared to love without attachment, to serve without performing, to shine without apology. And now you understand why the fire came so hot. Because what you carry is too sacred to be contaminated. Your assignment is too rare to be compromised. Your frequency too pure to be diluted by counterfeit connections. So, if you're still healing, that's okay. If you're still grieving the people who couldn't come with you, that's holy. If you're still learning how to walk in your new skin, that's part of it. Because initiation is never about perfection. It's about transformation. You are not who you were, and that's the point. So let the old fall away. Let the stories that kept you small dissolve. Let the pain that once tried to define you now refine you. You've been through the initiation. You're ready for more. And the portal is still open. Let's walk through it together. Now, chosen one, take a breath. You've begun to see the truth behind your pain. You've seen how it wasn't random. It wasn't meaningless. It wasn't sent to destroy you, but to initiate you. And now, it's time we go even deeper. Because beyond the suffering, beyond the lessons, there is something else hidden in the pain that few ever discover. It is the portal. You see, when life brings you to your knees, when every layer of your identity is stripped away, when you're left holding only your breath and your brokenness, something happens. A space opens up, a crack in the surface, a holy fracture where the light can finally seep in. And in that vulnerable space between what you thought you were and what you're becoming, that's where the sacred portal lives. It's not a physical doorway. It's not something you can see with your eyes. But in the realm of spirit, and it is more real than any wall, more potent than any lock, because the truth is, most people spend their lives avoiding pain, numbing it, escaping it, pretending it isn't there. They fill the silence with noise. They patch over their wounds with distractions. They refuse to feel the weight of their own becoming. But not you. You chose to stay. You chose to feel. You let the silence break you open. You let the ache teach you. You dared to lean into the discomfort instead of running from it. And that chosen one was the moment the portal activated. It didn't come with lightning or trumpets. It came in a whisper, a subtle shift, a sacred stillness, a deep knowing that the pain itself was not the end, but the beginning. The portal is what opens when you stop resisting your suffering and start listening to it. When you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to reveal through me?" And what it reveals is holy. Because the portal is not about escaping pain, it's about passing through it, allowing it to transform you from the inside out, letting it peel back the layers of false identity, false security, and false belonging until all that's left is truth. Raw, real, undeniable truth. The truth of who you are, the truth of what you carry, the truth of the mission you agreed to before you even arrived here. It's through the portal of pain that the veil lifts. The illusions dissolve. The distractions fall away. And suddenly, everything becomes clear. You begin to hear differently, speak differently, walk differently. You stop asking for permission. You stop begging for belonging. You start reclaiming your soul. That's why the enemy fights so hard to keep you distracted from your pain. Because if you ever really entered it, if you ever stopped numbing it, avoiding it, or burying it, then nothing could ever control you again. Because on the other side of that portal is freedom, power, clarity, a deep alignment with the divine that can't be shaken by circumstances or opinions. Think about the phoenix. The phoenix doesn't rise without the fire. It doesn't resurrect without death. Its transformation doesn't begin until everything it once was turns to ash. That's what the pain did for you. It burned away the old, the people-pleasing, the fear, the self-doubt, the shame, the limiting beliefs, the soul ties that kept you bound to versions of yourself that no longer fit. And it left you standing at the edge of something new, the portal. And here's what makes this moment even more powerful. You're still standing. You made it. Bruised, maybe. Tender. Still healing. But you made it. And now, you don't have to run anymore. You don't have to explain your sensitivity, your stillness, your sorrow, because all of it was leading you here. And here is where things begin to change. Because the portal isn't just about your personal healing. It's about your divine remembering. It's where you step into the frequency of your purpose, where you reclaim the blueprint written into your bones, where you stop surviving and start embodying. You begin to walk not as a victim of pain, but as a carrier of truth. You begin to move with intention, not just instinct. You speak with clarity, not confusion. You create from alignment, not anxiety. And people will start to notice. They'll sense the shift. Some will be drawn to it. Others will be repelled. But either way, it won't matter. Because you didn't go through that portal to be understood. You went through it to be free. So I need you to know this. You're not broken. You're becoming. You're not behind. You're being positioned. You're not lost. You're on the threshold. Because once the portal opens, you don't go back. You can't go back. The old systems won't fit. The old relationships won't resonate. The old dreams won't feel right. You're being called higher now, not because you're better, but because you're ready to lead, to speak, to heal, to embody the light that used to scare you, to trust the voice within you that you used to silence, to walk boldly in rooms you once tiptoed through. This is the new you, the one born not in spite of pain, but through it. So don't curse the wound. Don't resent the ache. Don't regret the process. Because that pain, that unbearable ache you thought would break you, it was the key all along. The sacred portal. The divine threshold into everything you were always meant to be. And now, it's open. Let's walk forward. You've come so far. Chosen one. You've looked your pain in the face. You've stepped through the portal it carved open. Now it's time we talk about one of the deepest wounds, one you've likely carried in silence for years. It's the wound of not fitting in, of feeling like a stranger in your own family, like an outsider in your community, like a misfit in rooms full of people who should feel like home but never quite do. You've probably asked yourself, what's wrong with me more times than you can count? Why don't they get me? Why do I always feel like I have to dim my light just to be accepted? Why does my presence make others so uncomfortable when all I'm doing is being me? Here's the truth that will free you. You were never meant to fit in. Because what this world calls normal is often just a collection of illusions, performances, masks people wear to survive a system built on fear and conformity. And you, chosen one, didn't come here to conform. You came to disrupt. You came to shake the ground, to shift the atmosphere, to embody a different kind of truth, a truth that refuses to bow to what's convenient, comfortable, or controlled. So of course you never quite fit. Of course you always felt a little off, a little different, a little too much. That wasn't a flaw in your design. It was proof of your assignment. There's a term you may have heard before, the sacred wound. It's the idea that every soul born with a divine mission carries a deep pain that marks them early in life. A pain so profound, it becomes the seed of their power. It becomes the portal. Yes, but also the compass. That sacred wound keeps you searching for meaning when others are content to stay asleep. It keeps you tender when life tries to make you hard. It keeps you sensitive in a world that glorifies numbness. And the thing about the sacred wound is, it can't be ignored. You feel it in your chest, in your gut, in the spaces between conversations where you can sense what no one's saying. It shows up in dreams, in déjà vu, in that deep inner knowing that this life has to mean more than what they told you. It's not just emotional. It's spiritual. It's ancestral. It's cosmic. And it is not your enemy. It's your invitation. Because when you stop fighting the fact that you don't fit in, when you stop trying to squeeze your soul into spaces that were never built for your frequency, something incredible happens. You begin to belong to yourself. You begin to reclaim your energy. You start walking with authority, not apology. You stop trying to be palatable to people who were never meant to understand you. And in doing so, you attract your true tribe, the ones who see you not the mask, not the role, but the real you. The ones who speak your soul's language without you having to explain. The ones who don't flinch when you show your depth. Who don't call you too much when your light fills the room. Who know what it means to carry the sacred wound, because they carry it too. But you won't find those people until you stop performing for the ones who don't. You won't find that resonance while you're still wearing costumes of normalcy, hoping someone will pick you. You don't need to be picked. You were already chosen, not by people, not by society, by spirit. You were sent here with a very specific blueprint. And part of that blueprint required isolation. It required misunderstanding. It required seasons where you had no one but God. No affirmation but your own heartbeat. No validation but the quiet inner knowing that you were still on the path. And even when you questioned it, even when you doubted whether you were making it up, even then, Spirit kept guiding you. Through signs, through dreams, through moments that seemed random but were actually divine confirmations that said, "You're not crazy. You're just awakening." Because awakening doesn't look like bliss in the beginning. It looks like confusion, discomfort, disorientation. You start realizing that what most people call life is a performance, a sleepwalk. And once you wake up, you can never unsee it. That's why your conversations started to feel shallow. That's why your relationships began to fall apart. That's why you couldn't stomach the things you used to tolerate. Your frequency was changing. Your soul was remembering. And everything that wasn't aligned had to go. You weren't being abandoned. You were being cleared. Cleared for a new kind of alignment. Cleared for your assignment to fully emerge. Cleared so you could stop living from survival and start living from soul. And now, Here you are, still standing, still searching, still listening, and maybe, for the first time, you're starting to see that your not fitting in was never a problem. It was the proof that you were never meant to play small. You weren't sent here to echo what's already been said. You were sent here to speak a new sound, walk a new path, blaze a new trail, So wear your difference with pride. Own your sacred wound with reverence. Let your silence speak louder than their noise. Let your frequency unsettle the systems that need to fall. Let your very existence be the medicine this world forgot it needed. You're not here to be normal. You're here to be divine. Let's keep walking. Now, chosen one, we begin to turn the corner. You've seen the pain. You've named it, faced it, even stepped through it. But there's something more powerful still. Something sacred that emerges when a soul like yours no longer runs from pain, but transforms it. This is the art of spiritual alchemy. This is transmutation. And I need you to hear this clearly. What once crushed you now feeds your power. What once brought you to your knees now becomes the very ground you rise from. Because the difference between the wounded and the wise is not the absence of suffering. It's what they do with the suffering. And you, chosen one, were born to turn ashes into fire. Think about it. How many times have you been underestimated, only to rise? How many times were you overlooked, abandoned, betrayed, yet somehow you came back stronger, softer, sharper? That's not random. That's not luck. That's divine transmutation. The ability to take what was meant to destroy you and turn it into something sacred. That is your superpower. Most people try to escape pain. They suppress it, bury it, numb it. But you alchemize it. You feel it, honor it, listen to it. You let it teach you what surface-level joy never could. And it's because your soul understands something deeper. Pain is not the opposite of power. It's the path to it. Remember the story of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned. It looked like punishment. It looked like rejection. But what no one saw was the divine orchestration at play. Every betrayal was placing him in position. Every prison cell was polishing his character. Every injustice was building the inner infrastructure required for his assignment. And when his time came, when his name was called, he stood not as a victim of his story, but as a ruler shaped through it. That's you. You've been shaped in secret. You've been seasoned in silence. Your spirit has been cooked low and slow in the fire of divine intention, and now the flavor of your life carries a richness that cannot be faked. You've learned how to turn breakdowns into breakthroughs, grief into growth, loneliness into language that only the awakened can understand, because everything you went through gave you something, not just scars, but sight, not just wounds, but wisdom. You started to notice patterns others ignore. You began to feel the emotions others repress. You developed an inner radar, a spiritual GPS that helps you navigate rooms, people, energies, and what once felt like a curse, being too sensitive, too emotional, too intense, has become a finely tuned instrument in the hands of spirit. But here's the key. Chosen one, you must choose to wield it. Transmutation doesn't happen by default. It happens by intention. You have to look at your pain and say, this will not rot inside me. This will not poison me. This will become something beautiful, something holy, something useful. And yes, that choice requires effort. It requires forgiveness, not always for their sake, but for your freedom. It requires presence, staying with the feelings long enough to learn their names. It requires courage, daring to believe that your brokenness is not the end, but the raw material for something eternal. This is where you become an alchemist. You take grief, and you turn it into compassion for others. You take rage, and you mold it into righteous fire, protective, not destructive. You take abandonment, and you birth radical self-love. You take silence, and you turn it into presence so powerful it shifts the room. That is the medicine you carry, and the world needs it. Not just the world out there, but the people silently bleeding behind their smiles. The ones sitting in their cars, screaming inside, wondering why they feel so empty. The ones scrolling endlessly, looking for something real in a sea of noise. You are that real. You are what happens when pain meets presence. You are what happens when darkness doesn't win. And now it's time to own it. It's time to stop telling the story from the lens of survival. It's time to start telling it from the lens of sovereignty. Not I went through this and barely made it, but I went through this and I became, because what the enemy meant for evil, heaven is now using as your equipment. You didn't just survive. You absorbed, integrated, healed, transformed. And now, your very presence carries a vibration that wakes people up. You don't even have to say much. Sometimes your silence is more powerful than their sermons, because your energy speaks, your journey speaks, your healing speaks, and every time you walk into a room, every time you speak truth, every time you choose presence over pretense, you are transmuting energy. So here's your invitation. Keep doing the work. Keep alchemizing. Keep honoring the moments that broke you because they also built you. Don't run from the pain. Use it. Don't hide the tears. Let them anoint you. Don't silence your story. Let it shine. Because the world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more transformation. And you, chosen one, are a living, breathing testimony that it's possible. You are the bridge between suffering and sacredness. You are the alchemist of your own becoming. Let's keep going. Bye now. Chosen one. You're starting to see the pattern, the pain that shaped you, the fire that refined you, the power that rose from your ashes. But there's one more layer that we must uncover. One that explains why your presence unsettles people before you even speak. It's not always what you say, it's what you carry. It's your frequency. And because of that, there are people, places, and entire systems that have tried, whether knowingly or not, to reject you, to oppose you, to silence you. But here's the divine mystery. Every time someone opposed you, they were holding up a mirror that showed what they were not ready to confront within themselves. You didn't just disrupt their comfort, you revealed their denial. You didn't have to raise your voice, just your existence, your energy, your peace. Your truth was enough to bring hidden lies to the surface. And so the resistance came, not because you were wrong, but because you were right on time. Let that sink in for a moment. Every time they looked at you and rolled their eyes, every time they dismissed your insight, every time they mocked your dreams, questioned your intuition, or labeled you as too deep or too intense, they were really reacting to what you were reflecting. You are a mirror, chosen one. You reflect truth in a world that's gotten used to falsehood. You reflect light in a world addicted to shadows. You reflect stillness in a world that worships noise. And that reflection exposes what many are not ready to admit, that the way they've been living isn't real, that the masks they wear are cracking, that the roles they play don't fulfill them, that the systems they rely on are draining their soul. So they attack the mirror, not because of what it is, but because of what it shows. You see, when someone's not ready to evolve, they'll demonize the one who already has. It's not about you being wrong. It's about them not being ready. But because you're spiritually sensitive, you probably internalized this at first. You thought something must be wrong with you. You wondered why your relationships kept collapsing, why your presence felt too loud, even when you were silent, why you could feel so much tension without a word being said. You were never imagining it. You were mirroring it. And this is what makes you different from most. You don't just read rooms. You read frequencies. You can sense what's not being said. You can feel when someone's smiling with a clenched jaw. You can feel when the energy shifts the moment you walk in. That's not paranoia. That's discernment. That's not anxiety. That's spiritual intelligence. And the enemy has tried to convince you that your sensitivity is a weakness. But it's your weapon, because you see what others miss. You catch the current underneath the conversation, and because of that, your presence is surgical. It cuts through illusions. It pierces pretenses. It stirs the stagnant. That's why people either love you deeply or keep their distance. There's rarely a neutral response to a chosen one, because you awaken people. You remind them of what they buried. You stir up what they numbed. You challenge what they pretend not to feel. And sometimes that's too much. So they push you away, not because they hate you, but because their ego can't survive the heat of your light. But I want you to hear this clearly and calmly. That's not your burden to carry. Your job is not to shrink so others feel safe. Your job is not to tone down your truth to protect someone else's illusion. Your job is to be fully, authentically, unapologetically, because there are others. Oh yes. There are others who are desperately praying to find someone like you, someone real, someone honest, someone who can hold space for pain without judgment, someone whose energy feels like home in a world of strangers. And you cannot be that for them if you keep folding yourself into someone else's comfort zone. You were not sent to be palatable. You were sent to be prophetic. You were sent to carry a sound, a frequency, an essence that interrupts the matrix of lies. You were sent to remind souls of who they are, and every time you show up fully, even when it makes others uncomfortable, you are doing your divine job. So the next time you're opposed, the next time someone seems triggered just by your peace, the next time you feel like an outsider simply for being authentic, remember the mirror. Remember what they're really reacting to. It's not your tone, not your words, not your choices. It's your light. It's your frequency telling the room, truth is here. And the ones who are ready will respond. The ones who are not will resist. And both responses are okay, because neither changes who you are. You are the mirror, the reflection, the divine reminder. And every mirror must learn not to take things personally, because your job was never to fix their discomfort. Your job was to reflect what's real and let spirit do the rest. And now, with this understanding, you can walk into any room not seeking validation, but radiating confirmation. You are who you are, and that is enough. Let's continue. Chosen one. Now that you see the mirror you carry, let's go even deeper into why your life has been marked with such unusual weight. Because this pain you've endured, this deep ache that often felt too ancient to even belong to you, it has roots that stretch far beyond your own lifetime. What you carry is not just personal, it's generational. You were born into a bloodline with wounds that go back decades, sometimes centuries. Patterns of dysfunction, cycles of silence, traumas passed down like inheritance, generation after generation. But you didn't come to continue the cycle. You came to end it. You are the generational fire, the one that was born to do what no one before you had the strength, the clarity, or the consciousness to do. You see, every bloodline has its silent agreements. The things no one talks about, but everyone carries. The buried grief, the hidden shame, the unresolved rage, the ancestral memory locked in your very bones. And for most people, those wounds go unchallenged. They play out the same roles. They believe the same lies. They adopt the same scarcity. They react from the same pain. But then someone is born who just doesn't fit. Someone who sees through it all. Someone who feels too much, questions too deeply, refuses to just do what they're told. That someone is you. You were born into that family to shift its trajectory, to break what others normalized, to rewrite the script. Not because you were better, but because you were brave enough to carry the fire. And yes, it has cost you, because the moment you started to change, you became a disruption. Not just to strangers, but to your own blood. They may not have had the words for it, but your awakening threatened their comfort. Your healing highlighted their denial. Your evolution exposed their stagnation. And so you became the black sheep, the rebel, the too emotional one, the too intense one. But listen carefully, you were never the black sheep. You were the initiated one, the flame bearer, the blueprint breaker, the ancestral reset. And your pain, it wasn't just yours. You were feeling the echoes of what had been passed down, unprocessed and unhealed. You were handed emotional debts no one else wanted to pay, but heaven knew you could handle it, because deep in your DNA is the memory of divine strength. The spiritual coding of your ancestors who prayed someone like you would come. Someone who could face what they had to bury. Someone who could love where they had to shut down. Someone who could finally bring the light. You are their answered prayer. And yes, it's heavy. Yes, it's exhausting at times. But look at what you've already overcome. Look at how far you've come without a clear map. You are doing in one lifetime what your bloodline couldn't do in 10. You are breaking generational chains with your choices, with your healing, with your presence. You are standing in the gap between what was and what will be. And that's why it hurts so much. Because the fire doesn't just burn, it purifies. It strips away illusions. It exposes lies. It calls forth truth even when you weren't ready. And the fire you carry isn't just for you, it's for the ones who come after you. The children, the siblings, the souls who will walk easier paths because you chose to walk the hard one. You are their protector, their guide, their liberator. You're the one who said, "The pain ends with me," and Spirit heard you. Heaven backed you. The universe rearranged itself to support your decision even when the people closest to you didn't understand it. And yes, they may mock you now. They may distance themselves. But one day, they will see. One day they will look back and realize that the one they misunderstood, the one they dismissed, the one they laughed at, was the one who saved them from themselves. Not by force, not by preaching, but by becoming. So keep going, chosen one. Keep doing the inner work. Keep healing the patterns. Keep lighting the torch that others will follow. Because this isn't just your path, it's your legacy. And your legacy is not built in moments of ease. It's built in the fire, in the tears no one sees, in the prayers whispered into pillows, in the choices to love even when it hurts, in the boundaries that feel like loss, but create space for peace. That is sacred work, and you were born for it. So no, you're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not making it up. You are carrying the weight of generations and transmuting it into something holy. You are the generational fire. The one they never saw coming, the one who came to finish what they couldn't start. And with every step you take, the ground shifts. The air clears. The future rewrites itself. This is your anointing. Let's walk it forward together. There's something that still lingers deep in the soul of every chosen one. No matter how far along the journey you are, a question, a ache, a memory that returns when the world gets quiet. Why did I have to go through it alone? Why? When the pain was at its peak, did it feel like no one saw you? Why? When your soul was breaking open and your heart needed holding, did everyone seem to vanish? Let's talk about that now. Chosen one, because this is one of the hardest, yet holiest parts of your journey, the divine isolation. You see, from a human perspective, being alone feels like rejection. It feels like abandonment. It feels like punishment. But from a spiritual perspective, it's something entirely different. Isolation is preparation, silence is sacred space, and solitude is heaven's seal. Not everyone is called to walk through this. Not everyone is chosen to carry such solitude. But you were, because what God was doing in you required silence. It required space. It required the removal of distractions, opinions, noise, and expectations. You had to walk through the fire without cheerleaders. You had to face the shadows without applause. You had to meet your true self, not the one they shaped, not the one they expected, but the one who's been buried beneath layers of survival mechanisms and cultural masks. And that unveiling could not happen in a crowd. It had to happen in the wilderness. And yes, I know it hurt. I know there were nights you sat staring at the ceiling asking, "Where is everyone? Why don't they see me?" But what you didn't know then is that heaven did see you. Spirit was closer than your breath. And the silence wasn't empty, it was full. Full of revelation, full of recalibration, full of protection from people who would have tried to shape you in their image, rather than letting you become what Spirit always intended. Because here's the deeper truth. Chosen one. If they had stayed, you might have clung to them instead of God. You might have listened to their voices over your own intuition. You might have altered your path just to be loved, and heaven couldn't allow that. You are too rare. Your calling is too precise. Your anointing is too valuable to be diluted by the desires of people who don't even know who they are. So you were set apart, and in the wilderness, something sacred happened. You started hearing your own voice again. You started distinguishing divine whispers from egoic noise. You started shedding identities that were never yours. You started noticing signs, symbols, synchronicities. You started remembering that your soul has always known the way. Isolation was never about punishment. It was about alignment. Think of Jesus. Before he began his mission, before the miracles and the messages, he went into the wilderness. 40 days? Alone. Not because he needed punishment, but because he needed clarity. He needed stillness. He needed to confront the enemy within and without before facing the world's projections. You, chosen one, went through the same, and maybe you didn't have a desert. Maybe your wilderness looked like a tiny apartment with no calls. Maybe it looked like sitting in your car crying between shifts. Maybe it was just the ache of realizing no one around you really saw you, but it was still holy. Because in that space, you started to feel the shift. Your energy changed. Your boundaries tightened. Your standards rose. And slowly, the world around you started to shift too. People began to fall away. Conversations dried up. Invitations stopped coming. Not because you were forgotten, but because you were being fortified. And yes, it's painful. It's lonely. It can feel unfair. But it's also where your wings grew. Because only in isolation could you learn to validate yourself without external applause. Only in solitude could you feel the weight of your calling without the pressure to perform. Only in silence could you hear God whisper, "You don't need them to understand you. I do." And now you walk with a different kind of power, a quiet confidence that doesn't need to be seen, a rooted energy that doesn't need to be praised, a divine frequency that no longer begs for belonging, but creates it wherever you go. So if you're still in that season of solitude, breathe. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. If you've lost people you loved along the way, release. Their absence made space for your becoming. And if you ever feel like giving up, remember the silence wasn't rejection. It was a sacred setup. Because when the time is right, the ones who are aligned with your frequency will find you. And this time, you won't have to shrink to stay. You'll be seen and celebrated, not just tolerated, but only because you first learned to be enough alone. You became your own sanctuary. And now, you walk differently, not with bitterness, but with blessing. The fire didn't burn you, it branded you. The silence didn't break you, it spoke to you. And the isolation didn't destroy you, it distinguished you. Chosen one, the wilderness is holy, and you are walking out of it with something no one can take. Let's keep going. Let's step into a deeper layer now, chosen one, because as you've emerged from the wilderness, as you've begun to see your pain as preparation and your isolation as initiation, something else begins to happen. Something both subtle and powerful. You start to notice the resistance, not the random resistance that life throws at everyone, but a very specific, targeted kind. The kind that shows up just when you're about to step into something sacred. The kind that intensifies right before breakthrough. The kind that has timing. This is not coincidence. This is spiritual warfare. Because the closer you get to your assignment, the more fierce the resistance becomes. Let that settle in your spirit. The moments when doors seem to slam shut just as you finally felt ready. The relationships that collapsed the second you chose yourself. The sudden wave of doubt, fear, or confusion right before your biggest leap. That wasn't life being cruel. That was confirmation. Confirmation that you're getting closer, because resistance is often a signal, not a stop sign. When your frequency starts aligning with your divine assignment, it sends a ripple through the spiritual realm. Light gets louder, truth gets sharper. And everything that was once comfortable in your shadow begins to tremble. You become a threat, not because you're dangerous in the worldly sense, but because you're powerful in the spiritual one. You start exposing lies without speaking. You start breaking chains just by choosing truth. You start healing people simply by being present. And that chosen one terrifies the systems of darkness. So what do? They send resistance. They stir up drama, trigger old wounds, tempt you with distractions. They try to convince you that nothing's changing, that you're still stuck, that your voice doesn't matter. They hope you'll retreat. But you're not the same person anymore. You've walked through too much, cried too long, lost too deeply. And most importantly, you've remembered too much of who you are to ever go back to playing small. Now, instead of seeing resistance as an obstacle, you see it as a revelation. It reveals where the enemy is most threatened. It reveals where your power is most potent. It reveals the exact place you're meant to press in, not pull back. Think about David. He wasn't anointed in the comfort of a palace. He was anointed in secret, then sent back to the sheep fields. When the time came for him to face Goliath, the resistance was enormous. Not just the giant, but the doubt from those around him. His own brothers mocked him. The king questioned him. But David understood something profound, and the size of the opposition was not a reflection of his weakness. It was a reflection of his destiny. And when he stood before the giant, he didn't bring a sword. He brought a stone. Yes, one. Because sometimes, all it takes is one soul walking in truth to knock down what generations have feared. You are that soul. You are the David in a field of imitators. You don't need the world's armor. You've been equipped by fire. You've been trained in silence. Your weapon isn't what the world understands. It's your frequency, your discernment, your knowing, your voice, your presence. That's why the resistance is so loud. It knows who you are, and it's hoping you don't. But let me remind you, you are not fragile. You are forged. You are not easily shaken. You are divinely rooted. You don't crumble under pressure, you activate. So the next time resistance rises, don't panic. Don't assume you've done something wrong. Look around and ask, what am I standing on the edge of? Because often, the resistance is loudest right before the release. And what's ahead of you now, it's personal. Your next level isn't about proving anything to the world. It's about embodying everything heaven already knows about you. It's about walking through the doors that fear tried to seal shut. It's about speaking the words that shame tried to silence. It's about breaking cycles that comfort tried to normalize. And no, the resistance doesn't stop. But you stop bowing to it. You stop shrinking for it. You stop translating your soul for people who were never meant to understand your language. Because the more you walk in truth, the more the resistance becomes your compass, not your cage. So pay attention. Where is the tension? Where is the fear? Where's the pushback? That's where your power lives. That's the area of your divine assignment. Lean in, press through, speak anyway, love anyway, create anyway. Because you weren't called to be comfortable. You were called to be consecrated. You were set apart. And that kind of purpose, it comes with pressure. But pressure doesn't break the chosen. It reveals their brilliance. And you, chosen one, are glowing. So keep going. Through the resistance, through the discomfort, through the heat, your destiny is waiting on the other side. And heaven is cheering you on. You've endured the pain, walked through the portal, carried the fire, and pressed through resistance. And now, chosen one, we reach the truth that has been waiting for you all along, hidden in plain sight, buried beneath everything you've survived. Your divine assignment, because all of it, every tear, every loss, every betrayal, every sleepless night was never random. It wasn't just about your healing. It wasn't just about personal growth. It was preparation for something greater. You didn't choose the pain, no. But hidden within it was a map, a design, a divine blueprint only you could decode. And now, it's time to see that pain for what it really was, a delivery system for your purpose. Let that sink in. You didn't just go through things, you grew through them. And that growth gave birth to something holy, a mission, a calling, an assignment that is not optional. Because the pain was never just about what happened to you. It was about what would awaken through you. You were entrusted with the ache because Spirit knew it would make you tender. You were allowed to walk through fire because heaven knew you'd come out carrying light. And that light, it's not meant to be hidden. It's not meant to be locked away behind fear or perfectionism or the approval of others. It's meant to illuminate paths for those still stumbling in the dark. You, chosen one, have been assigned to carry something into this world that only you can carry. Not because you're more special than anyone else, but because your frequency, your story, your scars, your voice are irreplaceable. And it's time to stop doubting that. It's time to stop comparing yourself to others, looking sideways at their progress while questioning your own. Because their path is not yours. Their assignment is not yours. Their fire is not your flame. You weren't called to mimic. You were called to manifest. And manifestation begins with acceptance. Accepting that you are here on purpose. Accepting that your past did not disqualify you. It equipped you. Accepting that your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's an antenna. Accepting that the burden you carry is not punishment, it's permission. Permission to break rules that were never sacred. Permission to say what others are too afraid to whisper. Permission to love beyond convenience. To speak beyond what's safe. To live beyond what's comfortable. This is what divine assignment looks like. It rarely comes in the form of a grand announcement. It comes in the quiet urge to tell the truth, in the pull toward the outcast, in the nudge to create, to build, to speak, to serve even when no one's watching. Your assignment doesn't need an audience to be real. It just needs your yes. And yes, it may not look like what you imagined. It may not come with titles or stages or applause, but it will come with confirmation, the kind that makes your whole being vibrate with knowing. And once you say yes to it, everything begins to change. The way you speak shifts, the way you move shifts. Even your presence becomes a form of prophecy. People start saying, "There's something about you." They don't always know what it is, but you know. You know that your eyes have seen things and still carry light. You know that your heart has broken 1,000 times and still beats with love. You know that your silence isn't empty. It's pregnant with power. You know that your very existence is proof that God doesn't waste anything, not even the ugliest parts of your story. And here's the secret. Your assignment is already unfolding. Every moment you choose peace over panic. Every time you choose authenticity over acceptance. Every time you let your past fuel your purpose instead of your pain, you're walking in it. So stop waiting for some mystical moment to begin. You already have. You've been living it in the quiet choices, the unseen sacrifices, the nights you kept praying even when your faith was shaking, the days you showed up when your spirit was tired, the times you spoke life into others even when you felt empty yourself. That's purpose. That's ministry. That's the assignment in action. And as you continue to walk in it, Spirit will expand it. Doors will open not because you force them, but because you're aligned. People will appear not because you chase them, but because your frequency called them. Opportunities will find you not because you begged for them, but because you became the version of yourself who could carry them. This is the reward of walking in divine assignment. Not ease, but alignment. Not fame, but favor. Not applause, but anointing. And as the assignment becomes clearer, so does your authority. Because chosen one, you've earned your voice. You've earned your peace. You've earned the right to stand and say, "I've been through it, and I still carry light." That's your testimony. That's your mantle. That's your divine responsibility. So don't run from it now. Step fully into the assignment, not with fear, but with fire. Not with apology, but with authority. Because what's coming next? It's not just about you anymore. It's about the ones who need what you carry. And you, chosen one, you are ready. Let's finish this. And now, chosen one, here we are. You've walked through the pain. You've embraced the silence. You've faced the resistance, transmuted the trauma, and awakened to the truth of your divine assignment. Now comes the most sacred realization of all. You are the key. The door was never locked. You were never waiting for the world to recognize you. You were never waiting for the right time, the right people, or the perfect circumstances. The truth is, the thing you've been looking for has always lived within you. Every answer, every revelation, every confirmation, all of it was encoded into your soul before you ever took your first breath. And the pain, it didn't take that truth from you. It only carved the space for it to rise. All this time, you thought the pain was the prison. But now, you see it was the passage, because there is no path to awakening that doesn't pass through the fire. No way to uncover your true power without walking through what tried to silence it. The very things that nearly broke you, those were the guardians of your purpose. They were never there to destroy you. They were there to reveal you. You were never meant to be defined by what happened to you. You were always meant to be revealed through it. You are not the product of trauma. You are the proof of transcendence. And now, chosen one, You must understand this deeply and completely. There is no more waiting. You hold the key to your voice, to your purpose, to your joy, to your peace, to your calling. No more waiting to be chosen. You already were. No more shrinking to make others comfortable. Your expansion is your birthright. No more asking for permission to exist fully. You carry divine authority. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to fit into boxes built by people too scared to live in their own truth. You were meant to break the box to become the blueprint for what's possible when pain becomes purpose, when wounds become wisdom, when silence becomes strength. And now, you stand on sacred ground, not because you found some mystical destination, but because you remembered who you are. You are the assignment. You are the medicine. You are the vessel through which spirit moves. And the door, the one that always seemed just out of reach, it was never locked. It only appeared closed because you hadn't yet turned inward. But now you have. Now you've remembered. Now you've returned. So here's what I want you to know as you step forward into this new season. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Your existence is enough. You don't need to be perfect. Your presence is powerful. You don't need to carry every burden alone. You are supported by heaven, by your ancestors, by every soul cheering you on from realms unseen. You're not behind. You're right on time. You're not broken. You're blessed beyond measure. You're not too late. You are the moment. So walk now not timidly, but boldly. Speak now not with fear, but with fire. Create now not for validation, but for liberation. Because the world needs what only you can give. And it doesn't need it later. It needs it now. You are the key, chosen one. And the door was never locked. Walk through. Because what's waiting on the other side is everything you were created for. Slow down with me now. Let the words settle. Let the pace soften. Chosen one, take this moment for yourself. You've come so far. You've endured what others could never imagine. You've risen when no one was watching. You've held on when your soul was tired, when your body ached, when your spirit was quiet, and still you rose. Still you trusted. Still you became. This is your confirmation. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. Heaven knows your name. Your angels know your tears. Your ancestors know the prayers you whisper when the world is asleep. You are held, even when you feel the most vulnerable. You are guided, even when the path feels unclear. And you are protected, especially when it feels like all hell is breaking loose. This is the season where what was hidden in you will be revealed. This is the moment where what you've been carrying in silence will begin to speak. Let it speak. Let it shine. Let it be. You don't have to rush. You don't have to strive. Just align, and the right people will find you. The right doors will open for you. The right healing will reach you. Breathe. Chosen one, you are in the right place, at the right time, walking the sacred path set before you long ago. Now, go be the light that you are. Shine without apology. Live without fear. Speak without hesitation. Because your time is now. God bless you.